If you live in or are even considering visiting the state of Louisiana, you better think twice before committing a crime because the new governor, Jeff Landry, just signed a new bill bringing back the electric chair and castration, which means getting your cut off if you're convicted of certain crimes.
What? I've been frozen for 30 years. I've got to see if my bits and pieces are still working.
Excuse me?
My wedding tackle.
I'm sorry.
My meat and two veg, my twig and berries.
We're the Shots Fired Podcast. I'm Kyle Schoberg, Mark Redlich, and we're your favorite first responder content creators.
Make sure you stick around for this entire video because we got a lot of interesting things to talk about with this state. But first, I want to make sure you're protected. And the best way to do that is to go to aura.com, the sponsor of today's video. I want you to Google your name, press enter, and see all the interesting things that pop up about you and your family. You will find different things like your age, your birth date, your home address, your family members' addresses, your maiden name. The list goes on and on. Go to aura.com/shots fired and sign up for your 14-day free trial to help start protecting your identity. Jeff Landry, he was in the military, he was a police officer, he was an attorney, and he's a business owner. And he's now the governor of the state of Louisiana, and he is coming in hot.
All right, one of the bills that he just signed, if you are convicted of certain sex crimes, judges now have the authority to have you castrated. You absolutely heard that right. I did not stutter. Judges now have the authority, should you be convicted of certain crimes, to actually castrate you, cut your balls off, not one, but both of them, as a form of punishment. Now, some lawmakers and people are pretty upset about that, which is hard to fathom because this bill is completely designed to protect children. And what it's really designed for, if you read it, is to prevent these predators to reoffend once released out into the public if they finish out serving their time. I want to read the bill. It says, Louisiana has become the first state where judges can order offenders guilty of certain sex crimes against children to undergo surgical castration under the new bill signed into law by Republican Governor Jeff Landry on this Tuesday. While the punishment of surgical castration is used in other countries that are known for harsher criminal sanctions, including the Czech Republic and Nigeria, it will be new in the U.S. The governor's office confirmed to the Associated Press on Friday that Landry has signed the bill earlier in the week. Proponents of the Louisiana law, which takes effect August 1st, hope the new possible punishment will deter people from committing sex crimes against children. Opponents argue that it is cruel and unusual punishment in violation of the U.S. Constitution. They say it is sure to face legal challenges. The legislation gives Louisiana judges the option to sentence someone to surgical castration after the person has been convicted of certain sex crimes. The law can only be applied to those who have been convicted of the crime on or after August 1st of this year. So it's not retro to everybody sitting in prison, probably shaking in their pants, wondering if they're going to get castrated.
Yes.
It only takes effect this year, 2024, after August 1st. All right, so there are other handful of states which offer a form of castration to include California, Florida, and Texas. They have chemical castration for those guilty of these types of crimes. In some of those states, offenders can opt out of the surgical procedure if they prefer, but no other state allows judges to impose surgical castrations outright. Here's the crazy thing. If an offender who fails to appear or refuses to undergo the surgical castration after a judge orders the procedure could be hit with a failure to comply charge and face an additional 3 to 5 years in prison based on the bill's language. All right, so I just read the law. I've never heard of this. I've heard of people wanting to do it, but now it's actually in law, signed by the governor, giving judges the authority to do it. What do you think about it?
To be honest, I didn't even believe you when you called me and told me about this, but when you told me and then I saw it and I read through it, it's shocking because it's something that I've heard people talk about forever. Hey, these certain type of criminals, we should castrate them so they don't do this anymore. And now it's actually going into effect. It's kind of mind blowing, but this governor is tough on crime. Like that's what he ran on. So to me, It's pretty shocking. So I actually looked into what castration is and why, or what the effects are. And briefly what I saw is that you're losing your testosterone. That's what's happening. So you're going to start losing your body hair. Men will start growing breasts. And the point of it is you are going to get less of an erection. It won't be as hard, stay that way as long, and your drive will be less.
So does it completely cut off the ability to produce testosterone, or you're saying you can still produce a small amount of testosterone, even losing them?
You could take medications or supplements of testosterone to kind of supplement that. So there is kind of like a workaround sort of for that, but your stamina is going to be significantly less.
So I wonder if they're going to prescribe medication to stabilize like testosterone levels, but not to the level of being able to have the sensation or the ability or the want to commit such a heinous, disgusting crime against a kid.
Well, I think the interesting thing about it is people are thinking that you are no longer going to want to do this. The reality is that your drive, your physiological drive is going to lower, but your mind, people are saying, those are still going to commit those crimes. They may not be able to do it as much or fulfill that, but they're still going to commit those crimes. And
the recidivism rate for sex offenders who reoffend after getting out of jail, it was somewhere up like 14%. So it's pretty high. There are things that obviously protect people. You have Megan's Law. You have things online that you can research people, and it'll tell you if they're registered sex offenders or not. But it's pretty interesting now. Some of these people are actually going to be getting their nuts cut off. I mean,
I wonder if that'll deter people. If people will even pay attention.
We're going to find out.
Well, I think we are.
And I think in the governor's statement, I think, one of the things that he said is one of the reasons why he's doing it is to make people think twice that if they do commit such an act and get caught and arrested and convicted, that's going to be the punishment. He thinks that maybe it's going to deter people. We've been doing this job in law enforcement a long time. We have the unfortunate pleasure of dealing with a lot of those types of cases. And I don't think it's going to deter somebody from doing something like that when they have that already, when that's just genetically, that's how they're wired in their brain, which is twisted. So I don't know that it will make somebody think twice about not doing it just because of that. But I'm very curious to see who the first person is that's going to be getting castrated after getting convicted of this.
I'll tell you what, we are going to hear about it the first time that happens after August 1st and someone gets arrested for it, because that's going to be a big deal. I imagine there's going to be all kinds of appeals. Like it's going to be in the media big time.
Yeah. So I'm curious, how does this play out? So if you're in jail and they say, all right, Mark, we're going down to the hospital to get your procedure done, and you refuse to do it. Obviously, he's saying you get additional 3 to, I think, 10 years tacked onto your sentencing. But
I think that's if you don't show up for your sentence or your hearing. Like you found guilty and you're supposed to go and you decide to skip out.
That's interesting to me. Like,
are you skipping out and getting an additional 5 years and you're keeping your nuts, or are you getting 5 more years and still losing your nuts?
You're like, Your Honor, I'm going to choose to keep my nuts and I'll spend an additional 5 years in prison.
Yeah.
I mean, what do? Show up to the hospital and you're like, yeah, I'm here for my procedure.
This governor came in January 8th, and he came in swinging. He was in office for about 3 months, and he has started signing bills left and right. And in the last 6 months, I can't even tell you how many bills he's enacted, because he's a tough on crime.
Well, this is what he was running his campaign on, right?
Yeah, he said Louisiana is statistically a very dangerous state. He doesn't like that. He wants it to be a very safe state. So now what's interesting is if you get your first DUI, he's making the penalties even stiffer for the first time. If you're already in prison, he's going to ensure that you stay in prison almost your entire sentence. So there's no more getting out on good behavior or shorter sentences. For legal people that are not convicted felons, he's now made it, which there's other states that have it, but he's on board with it, is that you can carry a concealed weapon. So you can carry a gun concealed without a permit. You don't even have to ask the government, the county, the city to carry a gun. You can just do it. People are pretty upset about that. In fact, that's shaken both sides of the aisle on that. There was one Republican that brought up a concern that his concern was that law enforcement are going to be responding to calls and not know what people are going to be carrying or concealing on them. I thought that was kind of interesting because officer safety is paramount. You should be paying attention to that. He's also made it where if police order you to get back, you now have 25 feet as a buffer. So it's preventing, well, it's not going to prevent, but it gives the law enforcement
the authority
to create distance when before there was none. So you had to worry about people. So now there's a law that says you have to stay 25 feet back if they tell you.
Wow.
That's also created some arguments on both sides. And one side, the Democratic side, is saying that it's going to make it harder for people to film the police to capture corruption. So
that I don't believe, because cell phones nowadays have the ability to incredibly get good video footage. Zooming, 25 feet, that's not that far where you can't get video. And most officers have body cams, and you know they can always do a public request act to get footage for stuff like that.
But what I find interesting about that, though, is he's kind of coming and swinging hard, and it's shaking both sides. Like, he's like, hey, we're tough on crime. Louisiana State is going to be a safe state to go to. And here's the kicker. He is bringing back the electric chair.
That is crazy.
So now if you go to Louisiana, you can be castrated or you can be sentenced to the electric chair.
All right, so pretty wild things happening in the state of Louisiana. It might make you think twice. So we're going to have to keep tabs on who's going to be the first person to get castrated and who's going to be the first person to be taking a ride in the electric chair. Guys, make sure you like, subscribe, and comment in the videos. It helps the channel grow. We are looking forward to a lot of new content that we're going to be giving you guys, more interviews on the podcast side. So with that said, thank you for watching today's video. Best of luck to you. Stay safe, and we'll catch you on the next one.
See ya.